Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Michelle Morris from Consolidated Planning Group. Sometimes we call ourselves CPG, but Consolidated Planning Group. We are special needs focused financial advisors. So almost all of the families that we work with have a loved one with some sort of intellectual or developmental disability. Um, and we're here to help you truly. So I'll go through a little bit of the rules of the road first in case you have never been to one of our webinars before. If you have, welcome back. Thank you so much for coming back. We are in webinar mode here on Zoom today, and that means that we cannot see you or hear you, but I do have the count. I know you're out there listening. But if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put those in the chat box. That way I'll be able to see your questions as I am presenting, and I can get to anything you need to talk about or answer your questions the easiest that way. Now, we always record our webinars. When we're finished, we will email the link to you as well as the slides. And we also post the videos to our YouTube channel, so you can watch there. We also have a podcast. So if you're listening in on our podcast and you would like a copy of the slides, you can just email us, contact@cpgcares.net, and we will send you a copy of the slides. So no worries there. And I want to, again, thank all of you for taking the time to be here with me today. This webinar should take about an hour. And thank you to Kristen Allen at Northeast ISD for sharing this webinar with the families in their school district. So again, Consolidated Planning Group, we've been around for about 30 years. We've been in this business. We do full service financial planning. That means life insurance, investments, securities. We're licensed for all of that stuff. We are located just outside of Houston in the Sugar Land area. And, we work with families all across Texas and all across the United States. So it really doesn't matter where you are, we can help. Zoom has been great for us. We are also members of the Special Needs Planning Academy, and we are National Social Security Advisors as well. So when we talk about special needs planning, families come to us for things like protection plans for their loved ones, thinking about life insurance, disability income protection, things like that. Lifetime care plans, how much is it going to cost to take care of your loved ones for the rest of their lives once you're gone? And how can we set aside money to be able to take care of them? We help a lot with transition planning because a lot does change when your child turns 18, and you have to be prepared for those changes and set things up correctly. So we help families with kind of a to do or not to do list in terms of what needs to happen during transition periods. We help sign families up with ABLE accounts. I've already mentioned life insurance, investments. We do all kinds of work on all aspects of your financial life so that we can help make sure everything is in place and ready to go. And then, of course, we are here to advocate for you and to help educate you. There are so many nuances to special needs planning, and not every financial advisor understands these things. So it's really important when you're choosing your team of experts that you choose a financial advisor who does really understand what it takes and what is needed to plan for somebody who has some sort of special planning need. There are over 263,000 financial advisors across the United States. And out of those 263,000, fewer than 200 of us focus on special needs planning. That's fewer than 0.1% of all the financial advisors across the United States that really understand what it takes to set your family up for success. And the reason that we do this is because the owner of our company, Allison Scoberg, she has two kids who have some sort of disability. And when she was going through all of this with her children, all of the things we're going to be talking about today, the waiver programs, eligibility for SSI, and preserving your other benefits, it was so complicated and new to her that she thought, I really want to help other families not have to go through so much uncertainty. So that's why we want to educate you on all of these things, and that's why we're here to help. So let's start off by talking about the waiver programs here in Texas. Now, this is specific to Texas. Some states, almost all states have waiver programs of some sort to help support your loved one. Now, not all states have the long waiting lists that Texas has. We have found that there are some states that are able to put a lot more money into their waiver programs, and they might not have a waiting list at all. But in the state of Texas, there are 8 different programs that are counted as waiver programs. And these are meant to help you waive off certain costs that your family might be responsible for in caring for your loved ones by using some of these HCBS or home and community-based services waivers. Basically, the state would rather give parents money and caregivers money to be able to keep your loved ones in their own homes or in their own communities, rather than having them live in assisted living facilities throughout the state. Studies find that it is way better, it's way more fruitful to take care of people in their own communities rather than having them placed in a state-run facility. It's better for them, it's better for the state, it's better for all involved. And so that's why they do this. So there are, like I said, 8 different programs, and we'll talk about what each one of these programs mean. So one thing that is important for you to think about is when you're looking at these different waiver programs, some of them serve a wide variety, a very broad range of people. For example, CLASS, the first waiver on this list, it stands for Community Living Assistance and Support Services, CLASS. Now, the CLASS waiver, it gives home and community-based supports to children and adults with any related conditions. Now, there are over 200 different related conditions that CLASS can help you with. They're talking about everything: intellectual disabilities, cerebral palsy, spina bifida, just anything, any condition that can be considered an intellectual or developmental disability, CLASS covers it. And this is for children, or for anybody actually, whose disability began before they turned 22 years of age. So because it reaches a very wide audience, you can understand that the waiting list for CLASS is really, really long. Now, when I say really long, we're talking about 20 to 25 years of waiting for waiver services from CLASS. Now, the very next one is deaf, blind with multiple disabilities, the DBMD waiver. For this waiver, as the name implies, you must be deaf and blind or have a condition that is leading to becoming deaf and blind. Maybe you're not there yet, but as this condition progresses, you will become deaf and blind, but you also have to have another disability. So you're not only deaf and blind, but you have another disability. So you can see that this waiver probably has a very short waiting list because not quite so many people will be able to receive this waiver because not so many people will qualify. So the waiting list for the DBMD waiver is only about a year. Sometimes they can get you through in several months. So as we're looking at the different waivers, think about how broad they are, how many people they serve, and see how that correlates to the wait time. HCS is really any home and community-based services. This is good for people who are in their own homes or small group homes. MDCP is for people who are 20 years old or younger, and they are medically dependent. Again, this is keeping people in their own homes and communities rather than having to go to some sort of a nursing home facility. MDCP, because you have to be medically dependent, has a short waiting list. Moving on to the next page, I just mentioned that MDCP is for people who are age 20 and younger. When they reach age 21, they would move on to the STAR Plus waiver. You can get on that list starting at age 21, and it's not very long. So if your child is nearing that age, you can put them on the STAR Plus waiver. Now, they are supposed to automatically be able to switch from MDCP to STAR Plus. Of course, when things are supposed to happen automatically, there can always be hiccups. So keep an eye out for that. Texas Home Living, again, any adult or child with an intellectual disability or any of those related conditions. Youth Empowerment Services. Now, this one is a little different because this is mainly for people with mental, emotional, and behavioral difficulties. That needs to be their first diagnosis. Not that they have autism and that autism is coming along with these mental difficulties and challenges, but that they have a major behavioral, mental, or emotional difficulty. Okay, that's what YES services are for, and there's usually not a wait for that one at all. And then Community First Choice. This one is an entitlement program. The wait is not very long usually, but you do have to get services through Medicaid. There is a managed care organization that you go through to hire the services that you need. So with the waiver programs, generally, as long as your child gets the waiver program, it comes with these sorts of things. You can get adaptive aids, you can get financial management services paid for, supported employment, employment assistance, home modifications, even respite care. Now, if you're on MDCP, you won't get these things, but you will get them through Children's Medicaid anyway. So that's things like professional therapies, music therapy, massage, recreation, equine, all kinds of different therapies, prescriptions, dental care, and nursing hours. They also, I mean, you can even get transportation services, help paying for residential services. Equine therapy is pretty cool. That's the one with horses. Dayhab programs or ISS can be paid for with waivers, and nursing hours. So they are definitely very, very beneficial. Because of that 20 to 25 year wait, it is so important that you apply for this list as soon as possible because most of them have that long waiting list. Now, you don't have to prove that you qualify for these services until your name comes up on the list. So as soon as you have any hint that there might be some sort of intellectual or developmental disability in your child, you should get them on these lists. And how do you do that? Well, first, let's talk about a little bit about financial eligibility and the general eligibility for these services. Again, you don't have to prove it until you come up on the list, but you do want to know that with some exclusions, almost all of the waiver programs are for all ages. As long as the disability began before age 22, you can get on these waiting lists. Now, MDCP, as I mentioned, is 20 and below. Star Plus is 21 and above. And that YES program, that's the one for the behavioral difficulties, emotional and mental. YES is for 19 and younger. Now, for most of the waivers, all of them except for Texas Home Living, there is an income guideline that you have to be below 300% of the SSI benefit, which right now, that means you have to have an income less than $2,829 monthly. It does not look at the parent's income, only the person who is applying for the waiver. So it doesn't matter if the parents make plenty of money as long as the child is unable to make money. They also have to meet whatever criteria is set by the waiver. That functional criteria has to be met. And like I said, you don't have to qualify until your name comes up on the list. So there's two ways that you can get waivers, two funding paths. First of all is that wait list. You're going to call the numbers that I'm about to give you. Hang on, it's coming. You call, you get your name put on the list. It's a statewide list, first come, first serve type of situation. And again, that wait can be, we used to say 15 to 17 years. Now they're telling us 20 to 25 years. There is also a pathway where they are trying to promote independence. And this is things like diversion crisis spots and also the PSRR or PSSR. Anyway, they're preventing people from going into institutions and diverting them away from institutions and helping people move out if they've already been put into an institutionalized setting. So the wait list, either you go and you're waiting for services, or this second pathway, there are options for you. So how to get on these wait lists? First of all, everybody on this call today should call this 1-877 number in red. This 877-438-5658 is the phone number to get on the wait list for MDCP, CLASS, and DBMD. Not everybody will qualify for all three of these, but almost everybody here, if you're here listening to me today, you will qualify for CLASS. So everybody here today needs to call this 877 number and get on that wait list. Now, there's also a wait list through your local intellectual and developmental disability authority, your LIDA, or sometimes people call it a LIDA. There are waivers through your LIDA. The LIDA, this is like Bluebonnet, MHMR, Texoma. Depending on where you live, they have different names, but your local intellectual and developmental authority, you can go to this link that's listed here on this page to look up your LIDA. It's by county. So depending on what county you have, you might have a different authority, and you want to call them and get on all of the waiver lists that they have as well. So everybody here, again, should contact their local authority and get on their wait list. Now, the last number in that darker blue box, the Star Plus, this is again for 21 years old and up. So if your loved one is 21 and up, or about to be 21, you can call that 877 number and get on that list. Let me answer this question real quick before we move on. If my disabled autistic adult daughter is receiving Texas Home Living already, Texas Home Living benefits, and switches from SSI benefits to SSDI from the Social Security Administration, will she lose her Texas Home Living waiver? No. She will be able to keep her Texas Home Living waiver. You can keep your waivers that you get even after you're on SSDI benefits. And we'll get into SSDI versus SSI here in a moment. And yes, if you're in San Antonio, your LITA is probably AACOG. I think I've heard somebody call it ACOG before. Okay, they've just started this where you can go to My Texas Benefits online and you can look and see where you are on the waiver waiting list, finally. So included here in our slides, where you will get these slides later on today, we have put instructions clearly so that you can see where to go on yourtexasbenefits.com to check and see where you are on the wait list. So you will log into your account or create a new account, whichever applies to you. And then once you are logged in, you're going to go to the Manage tab at the top of the page, and then you're going to select Interest List Manager. And once you view your details, it will be able to tell you, boom, what lists you're on and what number you are on that list. So you can check to make sure you're on the list that you want to be on. You can join interest lists and you can see where you stand with those numbers. Okay, so if you don't see that you're on all the waivers that you thought you should be on, refer back to that other page where it tells you, here's the 877 number that you need to call. Contact your LITA, find out why you aren't on those lists. Now, the promoting independence pathway that we touched on earlier, like I said, you can get waivers from being on the waiting list for 20 plus years. You can also get kind of pushed up to the front of that waiting list if you have a crisis. You can apply for a crisis diversion spot. Now, none of us want you to be in a crisis situation, but if it occurs, you need to take advantage of it and get moved up to the top of your get moved up to the top of the waiting list. This is called an HCS, crisis diversion waiver. You will get in touch with your local authority and tell them you are in crisis. And this is things like one of the caregivers, mom or dad or spouse or grandma and grandpa are taking care of the child, somebody passes away or gets a really, really bad diagnosis. And now you're caring for your spouse with this diagnosis and you're caring for your individual. Or maybe your individual is becoming a danger to themselves or others. Their behavior is deteriorating. They're threatening to run away. Things like that. Things that are major crisis, they will talk to you about and help you through if you contact your LITA, and you can get those that waiver a lot quicker. The other option is through the PASRR, Pre-Admission Screening and Resident Review. This happens at nursing facilities. When you are going into a nursing facility, and then periodically they do reviews for people who are already there, they look at you and they say, you know, can you be better served if you are in your own home or in the community? Then we can try and get you a waiver spot and get you services in the community rather than being here in this specialized nursing facility. I see some more questions popping up. So before I go away from talking about waivers, I want to make sure these questions are answered. And yes, we will be getting away from the waiver discussion. So two-part questions. Will AACOG be able to help me get my 8-year-old son's Medicaid back? Okay, so if your son was denied Medicaid due to income, and that income being too much, it depends on your income and the reasons why he was denied. Your local authority should be able to help you with those things. Now, SSI, you're asking about SSI and your 8-year-old son. So the thing with SSI is that when your child is a minor under the age of 18, they are going to look at the parent's income and assets. So the income and asset guidelines for SSI benefits are that you cannot have more than $2,000 in your name in a bank account, $3,000 if you're married. You can't have more than one car and one vehicle. Also, the income guideline, you cannot be making more than $1,550 a month. That's the number for this year. So as parents, most parents probably have above $2,000 in some sort of a bank account, and they're probably making more than $1,550 a month. So many children do not qualify for SSI benefits until they turn 18. Because when your child turns 18, suddenly they're going to look at their income and their assets. So as long as they're not making more than that $1,550 a month and they have less than $2,000 in their bank account, then they will magically be able to qualify for SSI benefits. We signed up for your texasbenefits.com and we're having trouble confirming our identity according to their system. Who can I call for help? Well, I know you. I see you have a common name, so it might be difficult to prove which individual you are. I have that issue too because Michelle Morris is a very common name. You might need to call the Texas Benefits or call your local authority and discuss with them. Have you ever heard of someone having a waiver and not Medicaid? No, because typically the waiver comes with Medicaid. So generally, if you have a waiver, you should also have Medicaid. That's a special situation that we would have to look into specifically for you. So feel free to contact our office with questions. We do completely free chats. So if you need a consultation, you have questions that I'm unable to answer today, or you have a question that you just don't want to put out in front of the whole world, sign up for your free chat with us. We do ask some questions going into it, and we've seen some pushback on that lately. It's just questions that we need to know to understand who we're talking to, how we can help you, how we can prepare for our meeting with you. We don't do anything with that information except use it to help answer your own questions. Just like a doctor asks you your medical history, we ask a little bit of questions about your situation so that we can help. Anyway, let's move on. Getting started with special needs planning. You need to, first of all, have somebody that understands the nuances of special needs topics on your team. You need experts. Just with attorneys, you need attorneys who can help with topics like your special needs trust, your will, guardianship, and things like that. You need professionals like Consolidated Planning Group who are financial advisors who understand special needs benefits. We do the paperwork, the money side of things. the money side of things and the benefits. A special needs attorney will help you with the paperwork, legal side of things, making sure your foundations are all in place. You want to start by gathering everything that you've already done, kind of like when you're putting an address into your GPS to find out where to go. Google Maps needs to know where you're starting from, so that they can tell you how to get to where you want to be. We do the same thing with planning. We need to know where you're starting from in order to be able to tell you where to go to get to where you need to be. We suggest that you develop a letter of intent for your loved one. This will really help you think about your vision of the future, how you want that future to look for your loved one, and what somebody needs to know if they're stepping into your shoes and they're coming along to take care of your family. What do they need to know? The letter of intent can start with facts like age, statistics, those facts that everybody needs to know. Where was your child born? What are their diagnoses? Who are their doctors? What prescriptions are they on? And as you go through those things, it will morph into what are their favorite things? What are their least favorite things? What does their bedtime routine look like? What spiritual beliefs do you hold for your family? What hopes and dreams do you have for their future? And putting all of this on paper is extremely beneficial. Like I said, in case somebody needs to step in for you, you know more about your loved ones than anyone else on this planet. So putting together a letter of intent will be extremely beneficial. And you can just keep that, if you have a binder that you keep for your loved one, stick that letter of intent in their binder, start it on your laptop, print out, your version. And then as your family grows and evolves and you edit that on your laptop, you just print the new version and stick it in that binder. So let's talk a little bit about funding. You know, people worry a lot about not only who is going to care for my child once I'm gone, which is a discussion we're going to get into, but how on earth are we going to pay for that? Especially what if our child needs full-time, full residential care at some kind of a living community? How are we going to pay for that? Here are some tips. First of all, make sure you preserve their eligibility for all the state and federally funded programs like SSI, Medicaid. Later in life, they'll be able to get SSDI and Medicare. Think about those waiver programs. Think about how you make sure that they don't lose any of that, because that pays for a large portion of their future needs. So if you mess that up, you could be taking away a lot of that funding that could make your life so much easier. So preserve eligibility. How do you preserve that eligibility? Well, you need to know the rules, you need to know the regulations, and we can help you with things like that by coming to these webinars, by signing up for our help. We will help you make sure that you preserve that eligibility. One way is to make sure that you have a special needs trust established, because your loved one, we mentioned there's a $2,000 limit on their assets and there's an income limit. So what happens when your child starts getting SSI benefits and they're getting $943 a month? That's the number for 2024. But they can't have more than $2,000 in their name and their bank account is starting to grow. What do? Well, you can save money for your child in two different places: the ABLE account, which we're going to get to, and the special needs trust. You can have one or the other or both for your child. And these are places where you can set aside money for them where it will not count against their benefits. So they won't lose those benefits. The special needs trust is great for like large amounts of money, like your life insurance, your investment accounts, any assets. can be left to your special needs trust for the benefit of your child. A special needs trust does have to be set up through an attorney. But once you have it set up, you can set aside any amount of money or any assets in that account that you want. There's no limit on how much you can put in there. What there is a limit on with the special needs trust is what you can use that money for. You should never use the special needs trust to pay for food, shelter, utilities, and cash if your child is still relying on SSI benefits, because it could cause a 1/3 reduction to the SSI benefits. Now, you can use your ABLE account to pay for food, shelter, utilities, and cash without that reduction. But the difference with the ABLE account is that you cannot put more than $100,000 in total, and you can't put more than $18,000 for the year 2024. So it has limits on how much you can put in total and how much you can put in per year, but it doesn't have a limit on what you can use it for. So these two things work really well together because you can move money from your trust to the ABLE account if you need to do so. Many people do not fund their trust until they pass away, unless maybe grandma and grandpa want to leave money to your child. That's one reason why you might set up a trust and have it funded right now. But generally, mom and dad will just have that special needs trust set up to where upon their death, the trust is formed and their life insurance flows into that trust upon their death. I think that answers the question that is in the chat right now. But like I said, if great Aunt Mildred comes out of the woodwork and she wants to leave your child $1 million, you might want to go ahead and open up that trust and fund it right now. If that's not a concern, you can wait until you pass away and have that just set up to be funded upon your death. So another thing you need to think about when you're thinking about, the whole special needs planning cycle, if you will, planning now is super important. We're not going to, chastise you or smack your hands for not having planning done. You don't need to be embarrassed about what you don't have set up yet or what questions you have. We want to look to the future, and starting right now is the best thing you can possibly do for your family. Whether your child is 3 months old or 3 years old or 13 or 30 or 60 or whatever. Planning now gives you time to make small incremental changes. Think about how things are going to affect your child, how having a longer term to plan makes the picture better for your family. After your child graduates from high school, whether that be age 18 or age 22, you don't want them to graduate to the couch to play video games. You want them to, there are so many options out there, but you have to look into it ahead of time. You might have to get onto wait lists to make sure that those options are available. There are post-high school educational options, plenty of programs through different colleges that they can look at. There are transition programs, vocational programs where they can help your child find a job or train for jobs. And there are residential communities that can be partial care or full care, but you have to start planning early, okay? And we always tell people that, when you're thinking about the long-term plan for your individual, sometimes people say, oh, brother or sister are fine. They're a little bit older. They're going to take care of little Johnny when the time comes. Well, maybe little Johnny might feel a little bit resentful about that because brother and sister are not mom and dad. And all this time they've had this friendly sibling relationship. And now all of a sudden, sister wants to try to act like mom. No way. Or maybe sister might feel like, gosh, I have my own family and my own job and my own needs. And I love my brother and I want to take care of him, but gosh, I've got my own stuff going on and it might feel a little bit like an obligation. You don't want that. So think long and hard before you just say a sibling will take care of their loved one. I'm going to leave this list up while we talk about some of the questions that are in the chat box. We do offer all kinds of different webinars, and the more you watch, the more you learn. They're always free. So let's look at this question. Is there a limit on how many times you can transfer money from the Special Needs Trust to the ABLE account, for example, in a given year or month? Different special needs trusts have different rules and regulations. There should not be. There might be small fees, transfer fees, depending on which bank you use for your special needs trust or what kind of account you have it in. But no, there should not be a limit on how much. Now, you do want to kind of keep track and play the game. There are fees associated with your ABLE account. But the ABLE account, it's very similar to a 529 college savings plan. As a matter of fact, an ABLE account is a 529A for ABLE, whereas the 529C is for college. You put the money in and there are fees, maintenance fees. That money is invested and it grows, and that growth is not taxed. So it is a tax favorable account. But they do have a cap on how much you can put in each year. And that cap is whatever the annual gift tax exclusion for the year is. So for 2024, you can put in $18,000 into the ABLE account. But you never want that ABLE account to go above $100,000 total, because that's where the Social Security Administration will say, oh, you've got plenty of money. You don't need our help anymore. So just keep it below that $100,000 total. Does the ABLE account have to be spent down to zero, or can the funds be distributed to an alternate beneficiary when the primary beneficiary passes away? So an ABLE account can only be given to a person who has a disability that began before they were age 26. They're going to raise that age, but for right now, that's the rule. So if your individual has their ABLE account set up and they pass away, you can roll it over to another individual who has a sibling who has a disability. Generally, if your child does not have a sibling that the account can be rolled over, Medicaid can come back after your individual has passed away and claim reimbursement for some of the money that they've paid out to your loved one. So it is a good idea to keep the ABLE account low. Again, you're kind of playing the game. We need to pay for shelter, food, cash out of the ABLE account as long as you still need SSI. But you don't want to leave too much in there for when your loved one, your individual, passes away, so that Medicaid can come back and reclaim all of it. So you do have to be careful. There is also that Medicaid reclamation or clawback clause to a first party special needs trust. But sometimes that's just what you have to do. It's just unavoidable. We can help you try to avoid the first party special needs trust by putting things into the third party special needs trust. But there are just certain circumstances where you have to have the ABLE account, you have to have the first party trust. And in those situations, you just want to be careful when it comes to spending the money that you spend from those resources first while your child is still on SSI, especially. And these are things that we can help you look at. We help you when it comes to stocking the pond and making sure that you have enough savings and you have enough money for your children and for yourselves in retirement. And then we also help you when it comes time to go fishing from that pond to make sure that you are taking out the right assets to be most beneficial for things like Medicaid, reimbursement and things like your taxes and that sort of thing. So we help with all of that. I have a third-party special needs trust set up, but it's only a thick stack of paper right now. That sounds very familiar. Do I need to take it to a bank and set up an account and all of that stuff? If you want to fund it, you will. You'll have to set it up with a bank. If you're not worried about funding it right now, then upon your death, your trustee or your executor of your will can take care of getting your funds moved into that account and setting it up with a bank. If you want to fund it right now, though, yeah, you're going to have to get that taken care of and turn that thick stack of paper into an account where you can put money. You can also invest that money. That account is just how it's titled. So you can put the special needs trust, you can invest that money, whatever you want to do with it. So when the child switches to SSDI, will the ABLE account be subject to that same clawback from Medicaid? Not when they switch, but when they pass away. They can still have their ABLE account when they're on SSDI. So some of you might be a little confused. So let's talk about SSI versus SSDI. So generally, when your child reaches age 18, they qualify for SSI. They start getting their Medicaid and they start getting $943 a month after you file for your benefits and as long as they qualify and as long as they're considered disabled in the eyes of Social Security. You go through all those steps, you apply, they finally get approved for their SSI, that's Supplemental Security Income, and they start getting their $943 a month and Medicaid. So they do that for several years. And then when the parent, so let's say you as the parent, I'm assuming, you get into your late 60s and it's time for you to turn on your Social Security retirement benefits. You've been paying Social Security taxes all this time, and now it's time for you to turn on those retirement benefits. Or maybe you become disabled or you pass away. When your Social Security is triggered, that is when your child can switch from SSI to SSDI. And that will mean that they will be drawing from your account. It doesn't take away from the amount of money that you get. They just get half of yours until you pass away. Then they get your full amount. So let's say your amount is $3,000 a month when you turn on your Social Security benefits. So you will get your $3,000 a month, and your child, instead of getting 943 from SSI, they'll come off of SSI and go on to SSDI, and they'll receive half of your 3,000. So they'll get 1,500. You'll still get your 3,000, they'll get 1,500. Then when you pass away, their amount goes up to 75%. So they'll be getting 2,000 instead of 1,500. Okay. And after they're on your SSDI or on their SSDI benefits for 2 years beyond age 18, they will also be eligible for Medicare. Then they will be, if everything is set up correctly, dual eligible. They will be able to have Medicaid and Medicare and their payments and keep their waiver, and all is bright and happy. My child is 17 on SSI, but won't graduate till he's 19. Okay, SSA, I'm sorry, but won't graduate until he is 19. Will he stay Okay. SSA stands for Social Security Administration. So I think you might be talking about SSI. That's the $943 a month. Now, if they're not getting the full amount, they might be getting 600 and I think it was 614 is the general amount if they're having that 1/3 reduction. But graduation really doesn't have anything to do with SSI or SSDI. Graduation doesn't really matter. What matters is, it's survivor benefit. So like RSDI, perhaps. Um, so if your child is 17 and they're already on survivor benefits, they're on survivor benefits because they are a minor. When they turn 18, they can go back on same survivor benefit because of the disability. Or you can get them on SSI when they turn 18. And then once they get approved for their SSI and get Medicaid, turn their SSDI back on. You should probably call our team and set up a consultation with us so that we can give you a timeline on all of this and make sure you do it correctly. There is a possibility that they could lose Medicaid if you don't do this correctly. So you might want to go ahead and engage our services to make sure that you have that all mapped out. Okay, Lisa. Okay. Another question I see. My spouse has never worked since she takes care of our disabled autistic daughter, and they started receiving benefits based on my Social Security record. Great, because there are things like spousal benefits and child in care benefits. When my child gets on SSDI, is there a limit on how much she will receive? Okay, so yes. You are referring to family maximums, and there are family maximums through the Social Security Administration. Generally, though, if you have a spouse and a child drawing off of one parent's record, you should be pretty much okay. If you want to prioritize one over the other, you can do that by not turning on spousal benefits or not turning on child and care benefits or whichever, but there are family maximums. How to figure out those maximums, the Social Security Administration sometimes does things that we don't understand, and it's a very, very complicated way that they figure that out, but we can help you understand those things. So let's see. So yes, there are different benefits that can be turned on at different times. We do an entire Social Security benefit maximization for families, FYI. But there could be a family maximum that you might run up against. Okay. I am retiring at 65. Can the SSDI be used for their daily expenses? And does that $2,000 limit affect their Medicaid? Okay. If you want to make sure that 65 is the right time to turn on your Social Security retirement, do a Social Security maximization analysis through us. It's not free. It's a paid service, but we will analyze your Social Security statement. We will tell you exactly when you should turn on your Social Security benefits to get the biggest maximum amount for you and your loved ones. And sometimes it is when you're 65 or 67 or 69 or 70, but we can help you figure that out. We can also tell you not only how much you should get, we can tell you if there should be spousal benefits or child and care benefits, and how much your child should be able to get as well. Now, when your child goes from SSI to SSDI, there is something called the Pickle Amendment that protects them because they might go over that $2,000 limit in their account. They might also be bumped up to the asset limit. if they're receiving too much money. You still have to watch out for that $2,000 in their account because you still want them to qualify for Medicaid. But the Pickle Amendment will help protect them against that income limit. The rule is that if SSDI pushes you above the maximum income limit for Medicaid, it won't be counted against you. Okay. Real quick, this is our team. We have 4 financial advisors. They're on the top row. And then we have 5 fantastic staff members who help with all the paperwork and the phone calls and scheduling meetings and marketing and all of that. We will be reaching out to you, so please remember these kind, smiling faces as you answer the phone. We are good champs at, we take no for an answer, really don't have to worry about that, but we do have to have a no from you, or else we don't know if you're interested and we keep calling you. So you can schedule your own free consultation here using the QR code. And if the QR code is not your thing, you can call us or email us, and we'll get you set up with your consultation. This is on Zoom. It usually takes between 30 to 45 minutes. We do ask you some questions up front to get to know your family so that we're not walking into this meeting blind. But we only use it for your benefit. This meeting is to answer your questions, to get to know you, and then we'll tell you about how we work and what we charge and see if it's a good idea for you to move forward with us. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to schedule your consultation. I promise we don't bite. So I do see that there's one long question here in the chat box, and this might be the last one I'm able to get to. So I'll leave this up. You can schedule your appointment while I wrap up. Okay, wife retired a few years ago. Our disabled adult child has been on SSI, and it nets out at $943. Qualified for Medicare and still on Medicaid. Good. It sounds like we're tracking here. SSI, but not Medicaid. Draw a portion of mine. Okay, this question is a bit detailed and a bit, muddy to get into in front of everybody with the whole crowd. So why don't you go ahead and either call or contact the office and set up your consultation, and we can walk you through this question at no charge, and help you understand what is going on and what you need to do to qualify for your benefits from SSI and SSDI and Medicare and Medicaid and all of that stuff. There is a lot that we can do for you, all of you, at no charge. But we do have to give this, your consultation. We do have to have a questionnaire filled out by you about your family to be able to give you advice. It's a ethical thing called Know Your Client. So please feel free to have this consultation with us. We can help walk you through questions like this. It's been 6 months. We don't know what's going on. Is this typical? Is $943 the most we should be getting? Why are we only getting $600 and something? We can go over that stuff with you and let you know, and help you make sure that you're signed up for everything that you should be. And then, like I said, if it's a good fit for you to move forward with us as a company to some of our paid services, we'll talk about that. And if it's not a good fit for you, we'll help you the most we can and then part ways. No big deal. It is 1 o'clock. So I really, really appreciate you sticking through with me, and the questions that you've asked have been fantastic. Again, I really appreciate you, Kristen, for inviting us to share with your families. There's links down there for our YouTube channel. Again, you can go watch all of our webinars at any time. They're super helpful. Our Instagram page is there, Facebook, and the podcast. I love you guys for sticking with me today. Thank you so much for being here and for all your kind words. And again, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. You'll have your initial consultation would either be with me, my husband Andy, or Allison. Either way, we try to have fun and get those questions answered for you. We are truly here to help. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you for being here. And I hope that I get to hear from you soon. Thank you. Bye. Bye, everybody. I love your words of encouragement.